Today we are dealing with the biggest spider pickup that I had from the BTS, and that is our Chilobrachys species from Sai Yok, if I pronounced that correctly. Hello and welcome back to Bug Realms. On this channel we like to discuss all things creepy crawly, so if that's something that interests you, please consider subscribing to the channel. So the animal I have here, the Chilobrachys Sai Yok juvenile, although as I said in my other videos, a pretty big juvenile. I wouldn't be surprised if this was not sub-adult in fact. But I could be wrong. This is a species I've never had, it's an unidentified species. Sai Yok is the location of this species. And I'm having to actually use a temporary home, which is this one here. It's not bad, but it's not the size I kind of wanted. And it's because I was stuck between two enclosures. There was a slightly larger one, which was, in my mind, ideal. And then there was this one. However, the larger one is side opening, and I'm straying away from side opening ones on the shelves for the sake of the kids. And although I'm still going to use that one, I'm going to put a new world in there rather than a very speedy, potentially bitey old world. We don't want a spicy tarantula that your kids can get hold of, right? So the side opening bigger one will be going to something else, and this one will be temporarily housed into here. Now Chilobrachys, although they are classed as kind of fossorial, I see them as semi-fossorial and terrestrial, because they don't dig too deep, at least in my personal experience. And I've actually kept a Ceropagopus lividus in this tank before, and that one was actually fine, totally fine, even though this doesn't have quite the right amount of depth for something that burrows that deep. It lived in here quite happily for a while until I passed it on, so it should do for our Chilobrachys. Now first things first is getting this grotty old tank set up. So I've given this one a quick clean now, just with water and a bit of scrubbing. It's not perfect, but it'll do. And now it's just adding the substrate in. So we do need to have a reasonable amount of depth, so it has that option to burrow. And I like to, if I'm dealing with semi-fossorial type spiders or terrestrial spiders that are opportunistic burrowers, is I slope the back. So basically, a spider isn't just about depth. That's what you've got to remember. They can build a tunnel down, and they can build it around the tank too, making their home feel larger, making them feel more secure as well. If they kind of curve around a corner, it feels like they're going deeper. I remember in the wild they'll come across things like rocks and so on in the ground, and they won't necessarily tunnel straight. So giving it the kind of sloped back means it can burrow down and around, as long as the base layer is bigger than the tarantula is. It shouldn't have any issue doing that. So for example, as you can see here, it's shallower on the front than it is on the back. I am going to add a little bit more in, but first I'd like to kind of create a hide. Now if you're dealing with 100% fossorial tarantulas, a hide is very rarely needed. They will just dig where they want to dig. But I've noticed in keeping Chilobrachys myself that a hide is used, and they burrow often into the hide and down, and then they will jump out of that hide still to get their prey items, among building tunnels in and out around the hide as well, which kind of makes it cool. Sometimes they're just silken tunnels, sometimes they are actually new openings, and that's what I love about keeping Chilobrachys. So I'm just going to go find something we can use as a hide for this one. So I've got this really cool bit of wood. It seems like it might be a little too fat to go in this enclosure. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have a play off camera, because there's a nice curve underneath, and it would kind of look like maybe a very thick root or something of a tree, which would go really well with Chilobrachys' home. So I'm going to have a fiddle around and see what I can come up with. Okay, so here is what I came up with. What do you guys think of that? So we've got a nice chunk of wood. I've added some moss as well. see if I can get it in a better light for you. Natural piece of wood, nice hole. It's raised almost to the top in the back of substrate, lower at the front, and this spider can maneuver, bulldoze that substrate to be exactly how it wants it. There you go, as you can see. Now we've got, that is a decent amount for a Chilobrachys, that not so much, but as I said, it can maneuver it how it wants to. And if I find that this spider is at all distressed with a home, then we'll just have to get it out the temporary run quicker. So the idea is that my enclosures are going to be the biggest thing I'm upgrading. So if we move up to here, these are tarantula room ones, these still have the film on, that one doesn't, and I'm going to be building up with these or similar to these across here, here and here, and they will all be top opening, so it's safer for the kids. They're not going to be able to just reach the shelves and slide up a door, and they'll all be bigger than these tanks as well. So eventually we will have tanks of the perfect size for both arboreal, fossorial and terrestrial all over these shelves, and then on the tops is when we're going to have slings and various other smaller enclosures like this one for growing on our spiders. So that's the plan. So the next stage then is to get this Chilobrachys here into here. Now there's only one downfall I see to this enclosure, and that is the fact that this spider can reach the top, because it can, I mean, all spiders can climb, but I mean it could settle up here for example, or down here, which would make it a pain every time it comes to feeding and maintenance. And obviously if the spider hangs around one of these back slots, when I open the lid it's more likely to bolt out. But being a spider that likes to stay within their sort of web areas, I'm hoping it kind of just goes for this hide and will web outwards. Now the only thing missing in here is the water dish, and I always have my water dishes kind of after the filming because I just find that easier, and it gives me that moment to just look at the spider and enjoy it before I put the tank away. So the angle that I've gone for here isn't the best for you guys, but if I move it back, there we go, that's a little bit better. But the reason I've done this is because I don't have a lot of time before the kids come home, and I'm going to be housing this one 100% with safety rather than visual for you. And that's because if this spider were to run out, that's no problem for me, I can find it, I can put it back. If this were to run out and then the kids come home, then we're going to have a problem. So I've got to put safety first. There's the animal. So we're going to crack open the lid. Oh, it's already had a little bit of a flinch. Take off the lid. And have a quick look at the spider before we move it. So there it is. Now it is huddled up a bit right now, but once it's stretched out, this is actually a pretty big spider. So the enclosure doesn't look like a bad size for it after all, but as I said, when it's fully elongated, legs stretched out, it's a lot bigger, longer and bulkier than it looks here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pop the lid on like so, and I've got my trusty flattened straw, and I'm just going to manoeuvre the spider with the flattened straw, leaving next to no gap for the spider to get out. Now it could just turn and attack the straw, or it could just bolt, or it could slowly ease its way out. Nobody, whoa, whoa, that is an angry spider. Look at that. So that went straight for the straw. I merely touched the back legs and this spider was at it. Look at it. It is in full threat pose now, which is going to make it harder to actually maneuver, but I love a spicy spider. But you can see why now. I've got to make sure that this one doesn't escape with the kids around. But yeah, that was an instant. I hope I caught that on the camera. It even made me jump, and I've been dealing with Chilobrachys for ages and it still made me jump. It's that initial prod. They're either going to leg it or they're going to stand and fight. Yep, stop. Wah! Stop kicking off. You can see the spider is following the straw. It's very hard to maneuver with a straw, but I don't want this, wow, I don't want him to bolt out, I just want him to get out. So, it's not got to the point where it's realising it can't beat me, and you can have spiders sit in this pose for ages, and there isn't a lot you can do. Normally, I'd kind of use a scooping action, and once I've lifted them up and over, they then decide, oh, it's time to run, but the straw is too flimsy for me to get it through safely for the spider without risking it running along the edge before the kids come home. You might be thinking, why not wait till the kids are in bed? Well, that's a little bit difficult for me because they all have different bedtimes, and remember, I also have a 12-year-old, so me dealing with these has to be in short time scale every time. Now I'm going to try and get this done because I've got to get it done quickly now because I'm running out of time. Just got 2 legs still attached to the pot. Ha! And there's the spider. Now the only problem we'll have now is getting the pot out, because what they do is they sense the vibrations, and on a few occasions when I've gone to take a pot out, it's made them bolt. But I think that this one's probably a bit knackered now. It's probably had enough of being like, oi you, get out my home. But we need to get that pot out there so that it can find itself, find its hide, and build its web structure. There we go. So there we have it. You can squeeze into that hide. That hide that's moss just on the edges to make it feel more secure. It actually has a bigger opening than that. We just have to add the water dish. So what I'm going to do is, this substrate is reasonably damp. I'm just going to leave this spider to settle down for an hour or so and then put the water dish in. I'm quite proud of that home. I think it looks pretty neat. What do you guys think? Make sure to comment me below, and we'll have one last look at this beautiful spider. Now, some Chilobrachys obviously come in beautiful colours like the electric blue and so on. There's a few others that take on some beautiful colours. Fimbriatus is really nice as well. This is one I've never owned before, and I'm assuming it's going to stay these brown colours, but it still has the iridescence on the feet. And I just think this is an awesome spider, and I cannot wait to show you guys feeding clips of this one. I'm not going to try now. It's had enough stress. The last thing it wants is to have something dropped in and running around. It needs time to settle, time to feel comfortable, up in a nice spot on the shelf, and then we add the water dish and we add the food. So I've got to admit, it's been a while since I've dealt with a spicy spider of that size. A lot of my collection now are kind of like smaller juvenile and slings. I have some adults, but they're all new worlds. So yeah, to deal with that, it's been a while since I've seen a threat pose off a spider that big, and I cannot wait for my other Chilobrachys to grow larger too. So before I put it on the shelf, I need to label this one, but I'll do that off the camera. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care. See you next time. Bye bye.